There are three miracles in Pulp Fiction where the hand of God reaches down and changes the story directly. Beyond that, luck, both good and bad, plays a major role in the story, and what is good luck to some can be bad luck to others, and even that may change with the flow of time. Have you heard of a concept called causality? It's basically fate, but can be seen as a river with a flow of cause and effect for everything all at once. God can affect the flow of causality, but a character's push against that flow, dealing with it, reacting to it, exercising their own free will and agency, agreeing with or disagreeing with God. This makes for a great story. This, all of the above, is the theme of Pulp Fiction. There's a general rule with storytelling. Bad luck can happen to your main characters, but good luck can't. Good luck happening to your main characters will often feel like a plot hole. Take Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, for example. A notable exception to the rule because Charlie buys a chocolate bar that contains the last golden ticket by pure luck, allowing him to participate in the visit to the chocolate factory. Now, if he didn't find a ticket, there would be no story, so we know he has to find it somewhere for the story to progress. So at first it feels like plot convenience, which is a form of a plot hole. The audience kind of goes, okay, I guess. So how does the story get away with it? Well, in this case, it is presented as a boon, good luck, but will later, for a brief moment, be seen as a curse of bad luck, where Charlie will lament to himself, if only I hadn't found that stupid golden ticket. Finally, the events will play out in a positive way, and Charlie will have grown from the experience. From the big final picture looking back, the golden ticket can be seen as a miracle of divine intervention within the story to help Charlie learn a lesson. The godly power in this case being the writer of the world, Roald Dahl. Now, they have a name for this. When the hand of the writer rears itself as divine intervention, that is called Deus Ex Machina, the God Machine. And this is where another rule of sorts comes up. God Machine endings in general are deeply frowned upon in modern storytelling. It's hard to really think of an example because nobody really does it because it can feel really lame. It's kind of like an "it was all a dream" ending. Okay, here's one. In the episode of the original Star Trek series, the crew faces an impossible threat, being endlessly toyed with by a godlike enemy. It's unclear how they will even survive, so you have to keep watching. In the end, it is revealed that the godlike being is just a child, and its parents, who are even greater gods, come to tell him to stop playing with the nice humans and go to bed. So he lets them go. It's plot convenience in a way, but because it functions more as a short story, a solitary episode exploring an interesting concept, it is still pretty cool. And the concept allows them to explore some fun postmodern themes. Postmodernism gets a bad rap these days, but it is due to a misunderstanding that it's tied to modernism. Postmodernism just means reactionary and aware of the greater landscape of stories and people outside the story. Anytime a character breaks the fourth wall and addresses the audience, that's postmodern. That's been happening since ancient civilization. Anytime a story deliberately reacts to its contemporary landscape of competing media, it's postmodern. Don Quixote is a postmodern novel. People call it a novel about novels. And this is crazy, but believe it or not, Christianity can be seen as a postmodern religion in several ways. That's one reason it's so awesome. You can even look at Christianity as a postmodern critique of other pagan religions of the time. The idea is that with a god like Zeus, supposedly he is all-powerful, but even on Mount Olympus, we and he occupy the same realm of reality because when he leaves Mount Olympus to come to us, Mount Olympus is empty. Whereas the Christian God is on another realm entirely above this one. He created our world. It's like saying, oh yeah, your God is the strongest in the world. Well, my God created the world your God is so strong in, bounces off me and sticks to you. The metaphor is the Christian God is a writer. He can write whatever he wants, and he can write himself into his own story. But that would be an avatar at that point, and there would be two versions of him. With the Christian God, it's one within, the avatar, Jesus, and one without. He can never directly enter it. The concept of God as writer existing above and outside the story is a postmodern awareness. Pulp Fiction is postmodern, and Tarantino does play God in interesting ways within the story. He even enters his own world with an avatar at one point, resulting in two versions of himself. But there is a main event in Pulp Fiction that everything is playing off of and commenting on, and it starts with a spark in the flow of causality, a freak occurrence. One man sees it as a miracle, divine intervention. The other sees it as just a bout of freakish luck. The event is this one, when Jules and Vincent are confronting a rogue cell of dealers for their boss Marcellus Wallace, and are ambushed by a third party around the corner who unloads a full 6 rounds directly at them from basically point-blank range. Miraculously, he misses every shot and is subsequently blown away. There were quantum threads as to where the story could go from here. the rogue dealer Marvin and his right-hand man escaping and counterattacking Marcellus, that would amount to basically a John Wick plot, is now cut off. The guy who would be John Wick in this scenario just missed every shot and got blown away. The plot as it is progressing straightforward and unabated to deliver the rogue dealer to Marcellus for questioning and return the stolen briefcase. But the miracle has put a wrench in things just a bit. Vincent can't believe their luck, but Jules is visibly shaken and takes it as a sign. They are arguing in the car over whether or not it was a miracle that saved them back there when another miracle occurs. An interesting juxtaposition is that we're talking about the hand of God coming down and toying with the story, and the briefcase actually has the code 666 to open it, the mark of the beast. At this point too, Vincent has looked in the briefcase, which has blinded him to seeing the miracle as an act of divine intervention. Don't get me wrong, he has agency. It's not like he was Christian, then looked at the briefcase, and then was brainwashed, and then he became an atheist. It's more just that God is aware of the irony, and it's the atheist who looks in the briefcase and is later destroyed, while the Christian avoids looking in the briefcase and is saved. Jules, throughout the whole movie, never looks in the briefcase. You could play this logic out just a bit, and you see that the Tim Roth character known as Pumpkin, he does look in the briefcase, which we can imagine will seal his fate, just like with Vincent. Jules' warnings towards him will eventually fall flat. While his wife Honey Bunny, she never looks in the briefcase. There is still hope for her. One last example of this is, I think Mia Wallace and Marcellus Wallace probably have looked in the briefcase. It's Marcellus's briefcase after all, and she's his wife. She's very close to him. But we never actually see them do it. But assuming they did, they would be doomed in a sense, just like Vincent. And it does play out like they were in fact doomed. We see them sentenced to horrible fates by the river of causality, but in their case they are saved. Not by God, but by humans standing against the river of causality. Vincent, even though he is an atheist who rejects God, he is the one to stand up and save Mia. Have you heard the saying, we make plans and God laughs? That is basically the theme of Pulp Fiction. But God in this scenario is Tarantino, and he is a postmodern God of the Christian variety who exists outside the story and can only enter it with an avatar. He can affect the river of causality with miracles, but humans have free will and all can swim against or with the river of causality in their own way. So the second miracle is that Vincent's gun goes off for no reason, blowing the rogue dealer Marvin away, exploding his head actually, who was, by the way, the entire point of the plot up to this point. They had to bring him to Marcellus. So again, the quantum threads of storytelling are reweaved, and that more classic crime movie plot that we were progressing down is now completely derailed and replaced with a new one. Now Jules and Vincent have to deal with a dead body and a bloody car. There is no setup and payoff for this moment. It comes completely out of the blue. It's convenient in the sense that it allows the movie to keep doing what it wants to do, which is to go to interesting unexplored places in the crime genre, but it technically counts as bad luck for our main characters, so it's allowed. And within the context of the story, it can be seen as another act of God. It is an interesting question. What does God want here? He wants to send them to the house to get new clothes and deal with the body, to then be at the coffee shop to meet Honey Bunny and Pumpkin. You could also look at it like, is the briefcase allowed to perform miracles as well? And there's a sort of battle of wits going on between God and the devil for the soul of the characters. That last part is definitely true, but I don't know that the miracles can be attributed to the briefcase, although both miracles so far have happened in direct vicinity of the briefcase. But it makes more sense that the miracle is caused by God as well, to help Jules on his path to salvation. And for one, it interrupts Vincent in the middle of a very interesting line. Vincent is saying, you gotta have an opinion. I mean, do you think God came down from heaven and BAM! The gun goes off. And B, it sets Jules on a path to confront Pumpkin in the restaurant and reiterate his resolve to be saved. And save at least Honey Bunny, but possibly Pumpkin as well. If this miracle didn't happen, there's a good chance Jules may fall back into the life eventually. You'd like to say he had such strong resolve, even from the one miracle, that that's it, and he's good to go. And he talks like he is. But God knows things we don't, and he may know Jules needs to not only speak aloud his transformation, but also to put it into practice. In this way, the final restaurant scene could almost be seen as a pilot episode for the new Jules TV show, as he likes to compare himself to Caine in Kung Fu, dealing in a non-violent way, with Honey Bunny and Pumpkin in the restaurant is his first adventure, and the show will continue. The briefcase then represents the deal with the devil, the hedonistic, pleasure-filled life of crime, and all it takes is a look to pull you in. It's more of a cursed object than something representing the will of the devil. But we can extrapolate what the devil wants. He wants specifically Jules' soul, and Mia, and Marcellus, and Vincent's. If you look in the briefcase and die, that's +1 point for the devil. If you don't look in the briefcase and instead walk away, that's +1 for God. These are the main points scored over the course of the movie, making it a tie. But the tiebreaker probably goes to God because Mia and Marcellus narrowly escaped terrible fates despite presumably looking into the briefcase. However, playing it forward, Satan will score 1 more point with Pumpkin as he looked into the briefcase. Anyway, from this perspective, the main conflict of Pulp Fiction is over the souls of these characters. Now, there are a few other moments of extreme good luck and bad luck to the point they could be characterized as divine intervention in Pulp Fiction. These events happen not in direct vicinity to the briefcase, but in the Butch storyline and the Mia Wallace dance storyline. One is that Butch's girlfriend forgets his grandfather's watch and he has to go back to get it. Now, this is not a direct act of God because remember, in the Christian model, we have free will and agency. Brainwashing isn't allowed. Butch's girlfriend literally forgot. It was her agency that caused that bad luck, not a freak miracle. God did not swing down and take the memory out of her head so as to progress the plot. She just forgot, and Butch has to deal with it. So in that way, it is not the hand of God at play in this story like in the Jules and Vincent storyline. It's the same for the moment when Mia mistakes Vincent's heroin for cocaine. We are dealing in the realm of human agency still, not divine intervention. However, in the case of the gold watch, the fact Butch has to go back for it does end up being the reason Vincent dies. We make plans and God laughs. All in all, there are 3 moments where God intervenes in the Pulp Fiction story. The first is when Jules and Vincent survive the barrage of bullets. The second is when Vincent's gun goes off for no reason and derails their current plan. Can you guess the third? It isn't Butch's girlfriend forgetting the watch, or Mia snorting the cocaine. What could it be? When Butch's paused to cross the road to complete freedom in his car after retrieving the watch, and who should pass literally in front of his car on the crosswalk to notice him but Marcellus Wallace himself? This is a moment of extreme serendipity. It is seemingly bad luck for Butch and good luck for Wallace, but in time we will find it is extremely good luck for Butch and bad luck for Wallace. You might think this is the third miracle of divine intervention, but remember the rule is God cannot brainwash people. They maintain free will and agency in the flow of causality. Marcellus getting groceries and Butch crossing that road at that time is still in the realm of their own free will, and is instead just serendipitous. Besides that, there is no singular miracle act to point to. It's just serendipitous. Also, during the chaotic chase that ensues, they end up kidnapped in a sex dungeon. Believe it or not, this is also serendipitous. God is watching, not intervening. The miracle occurs here, where Butch uses his strength to break his shackles and escape. The shot is played back in slow motion, without a sped up frame rate. Usually to make slow motion look smooth, you want to shoot it at a higher frame rate. But this is still at 24 frames per second, and it gives it an extremely choppy, blurry look. It's a cool stylistic choice I've seen utilized a lot by Chinese cinematic auteurs like Wong Kar-wai, who I know Tarantino is a fan of, but I believe he is signaling something with that choice, beyond just a stylistic choice. This is not style over substance. This is signaling a point where God touches down in the story. Now you might say, what about the character's agency? It's Butch who is trying to escape, giving it all he's got. If God helps him, that takes away from his agency. It's true, but Butch's free will wasn't changed. God didn't brainwash him and implant the idea in his head that he wanted to escape or that he should just pull harder. All he did was affect the chain itself, outside of the free will of Butch. This divine act from God ends up giving Butch a choice, and it's a choice that, if chosen correctly, will lead to his own salvation. If Butch just ran out from this point, he leaves with the curse of Marcellus Wallace still upon him. But instead, he chooses to return and rescue Wallace, and is in turn granted a pardon and achieves his salvation. God does seem to have a bit of a personality here, and he is rooting for the characters. He wants them to achieve salvation. And he can dip his toes to tilt the scales at important crossroads of fate. One interesting element here is that God definitely plays favorites. While he seems extremely interested in helping Butch and even Marcellus Wallace, and of course Jules, He lets many characters die horrible random deaths. Some of this is still in the realm of free will and agency, so he's just watching. He watches as Vincent is gunned down by Butch. But this guy, he literally pulls the trigger to kill himself, with no remorse, almost with a sense of humor. And this guy. These two die as direct results of divine intervention. What I can say about that is that I think Pulp Fiction literally has NPCs, non-player characters, where these are not beings of divine free will, at least not on the level that Jules, Vincent, Mia, Butch, and Marcellus are, who enjoy a direct fascination and affection from God. These NPC characters are free to be killed because God just isn't as interested in them. It's not clear if they are even real people with souls the way Jules and Vincent are. In all this, who is the most beloved character by God? It's not who you might first think. I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right. It's Vincent. He emerges as the most interesting character. Interesting to the audience and interesting to God. How do I know this? When they were casting Pulp Fiction, every actor who read for the movie wanted to play Vincent. Everyone. At the time, Bruce Willis was the most famous actor on the planet, easily the most top-billed actor of the whole cast, and he wanted to play Vincent. It was almost to the point where he wouldn't do it unless he was given the Vincent role, when Tarantino finally convinced him that Butch was also an awesome character. But it was clear that just on the page alone, Vincent was the most interesting character. Why? The man who did get to play Vincent, John Travolta, gave a performance for the ages and enjoyed a career revitalization because the role was so juicy. Once played out on the screen, it was still the best role in the movie. Vincent is the most interesting character in the movie, one of the most interesting characters of all time. Why? Because even God takes a special interest in Vincent. But why? And Vincent rejects him. There you have it. Vincent rejects God even though God takes a special interest in him. Vincent's character is tragic. I don't mean that he's the one who dies and that's sad. I mean tragic with a capital T, like Greek tragedy tragic. I'm saying he's the one who is doomed. He's the one who rejects God completely and as a result of his own free will meets his end. To God, he is the one he most wanted to save but couldn't. He is the one God loved the most, even more than Jules, and he didn't make it out. When God looked on as Vincent came out of the bathroom and saw Butch holding his gun, God did not play favorites. It was just pure free will at play, and what happened happened, and God was forced to watch. And that was the end of Vincent Vega. But you better believe God was devastated by that. If you know Tarantino, you know his movies take place in a shared universe of sorts, and that Vincent Vega actually had a brother that appeared in Reservoir Dogs. Michael Madsen played Vic Vega, Vincent's brother. Now, I'm not sure of the timeline, but there's a potential for fanfic out there that if Vic got wind that Butch had killed his brother, assuming Vic was still alive at this point, he may try to go track down Butch and get revenge. So it's possible Butch hasn't quite reached salvation yet. In the end, Tarantino's approach to include the will of God within the story of Pulp Fiction was magnificent. It allowed Tarantino to write an extremely original story because the acts of God always derail the story from the standard fare, as well as force the characters into interesting scenarios to exercise their own free will and agency in the river of causality. This in turn made them some of the best characters ever committed to screen, and the whole project came together to become an iconic classic. What I don't see much of is people talking about Pulp Fiction's unifying theme, which is extremely pervasive and influential throughout the whole story, and is a huge reason why the project became such a timeless classic. That theme being the existence of the will of God within the story. If you like these kind of essays on storytelling, there's a few other good ones on my channel. Check those out. And I have a full nonfiction book available here. Link in the description that you can pick up. Thank you.